Hi, I wanted to welcome you to my ESL case study. My name is Laura Tenney. For my interview for part one, my case study is from Japan, and she was a foreign exchange student in high school. She has lived in the United States for over 10 years. Her husband got a job at Toyota, so she was able to stay for quite a bit, which was wonderful. She told me that learning English in Japan was very different than in America. Her professor's pronunciation was incorrect, which led her to difficulties when she came to America because she had trouble understanding the correct pronunciation, which I found pretty interesting. Nowadays, they bring in a lot of English speakers, and so that's not as much of a problem as it was back when she was younger. She really struggled with academic accommodations in school. She went to a small Catholic school, and the teachers didn't explain like true and false questions. It took her an hour to read one page of a chapter book that she was supposed to read by the end of the day. So she really had to do a lot of extra work in order to be successful at school. And she did mention to me that media helps her learn English, and I thought that was pretty neat. She likes to watch TV with the captions on because she can pause the show and look up a word that she doesn't know. I thought that was pretty smart. And if I was to learn another language, I think I would utilize that as well. For part two, for my error analysis, she brought up in our interview that she kind of struggles with using articles in language, and she is aware of that gap, obviously, since she brought it up, and works with her daughter to correct that usage when she writes papers for her courses in Japan. So her daughter will kind of edit her writing. How would I help with those articles? I would not seek to explicitly correct errors, as her daughter is really already doing so. Our textbook suggested that correcting within a writing sample was appropriate, and if I had had her in a class, I would have created a mini lesson to reinforce the usage of the articles within her writing, which hopefully would have translated into her spoken language. Part three, for the oral language proficiency, I performed the slalom, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, observation matrix. And for all of those, she placed at a 4. I noticed that her comprehension was definitely at a level 4. She was able to communicate what I would say would be at normal speeds, though I did have to repeat myself a few times. Now, granted, I'm a pretty fast talker, so that may have contributed to it. Her fluency would also be at a 4 because she's able to speak fluently in conversation. But there were a few times in our conversation when she searched for a minute on how to explain some of her literacy activities at school. In her vocabulary, I place her at a 4 because she will occasionally use inappropriate wording in her sentence structure. For pronunciation, I placed her at a 4 because I can understand her, but she has a definite accent when she speaks. Her grammar would be placed at a 4 as well because she has difficulty with articles, but I can still understand what she means. As for the stages of language proficiency in our Making Sense textbook, looking at this rubric, I placed her in an intermediate fluency category due to her high level of language acquisition. As I said, yep, intermediate. Part 4, implementing the writing activity. I asked my case study to complete an assignment from the Reading, Writing, and Learning in ESL, a resource book for teaching K through 12 English language learners by Suzanne Pierogi and Owen Boyle. And that one of the activities that they did was writing with adjectives to kind of show what's going on, really use a lot of great rich words to explain a really small sentence. And so, and it is found on page 287 if you are curious. The purpose of the lesson, as I said, was to increase the use of adjectives in a sentence, showing what was happening instead of just kind of telling it. I asked her to use the sentence, "The party was fun, and Helen Dashnell was a great woman." And it was really neat to see her expound on both of those sentences, just with really great adjectives. So I thought that was a pretty neat thing to do. My recommendations for further instruction, I plan to model showing and not telling activity further and add more explicit instruction when called for, and really begin to scaffold her writing into larger paragraphs of creative writing. I think that she probably does a lot of research-based things because she is taking some courses. Actually, she's taking some TESOL courses in Japan, But I think that she struggles a little bit with her creative writing, and because we kind of had mentioned that a little bit. So I think that I would want to scaffold that a bit. For part 5, for reading comprehension focused lesson, um, I created a lesson around the little duck and the text to self, text to text, and text to world. And I asked her to write down any connections she found as we were reading The Little Duck. Um, and I modeled what that would look like and how to put the evidence in a Word document table. So as I was reading it, she was typing away on her Word document and on her computer. And, oh, I'm sorry. Just wanted to, before I go back, just really wanted to reiterate that I think that I would continue to model, what that would look like, how to put text evidence in a Word document table, because she did really well on it, but I think I could have probably pushed her a little farther just to do some more in-depth connections. Her text to world, I think she struggled a little bit with knowing what that was, even though we had reviewed it, and so I would have gone back and kind of reviewed it just a little bit more for her. For part 6, for my conclusions, my recommendations for my child's, like if she was to have, for her teacher, if she would have been in high school, I would have asked the teacher to do some focus lessons on when to use articles and language. But because she is an adult, I would have her daughter to continue to edit her papers and work on those articles at home. Her daughter is an American citizen. She actually has 3 of them that were born in America. And so they've each graduated college, and so they have a lot of strong English experience. And in fact, going back to Japan was really difficult for them because their language, primary language, was English. And now they look Japanese because they're Japanese, and so when they went back to Japan, it was really difficult for them to know because people expected them to know the language so well. So it's kind of like ESL in reverse. But anyway, back to my conclusions. I, I would, as I said, continue to have her daughter edit papers and work on those articles at home. But because my case study, recognized that this is something important and that she would like support in, and I feel like her daughter is really meeting that need. Moving forward, I really feel like I have a large amount of resources at my disposal to help with any ELL student. I really wanted to, quell that misconceptions that a lot of teachers think that they know about how to treat ELL students, and become an advocate for ELL learners in the school, as well as I feel like now I can really create some really strong lesson plans that are going to be a lot more effective for our ELL students. So I definitely got a lot out of the class in that respect for sure. And what more can you ask for to be able to help out our students? So thank you so much for listening to my case study, and have a wonderful day.